Well, hey everyone, it's Friday afternoon. College football is right around the corner. I'm here with Bradley Kendall. We're in our apartment here in the Lofts, and we're going to bring you an edition of After Further Review, College Pick'em, Week 10. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. What we're going to do is we're going to go through the top 25 games, offer our analysis for them, see who we've got. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
Let's do it. All right, we got the first game coming up. It's 8 o'clock on Saturday night. We got Memphis and Tulsa. Tulsa kind of struggling this year. They're 2-7, 1-4 in the conference. Memphis has really performed well. After Justin Fuente left a couple years ago for Virginia Tech, they've rebounded well. They're 23rd ranked in the country right now. And there's an article I got on here that says they're keeping their focus even with the same dilemma they experienced 2 years ago. I'm assuming that dilemma means that they're trying to work their way into the Near Six, and since they don't have a good enough resume, they're not able to get there. That's probably my guess.
Well, playing teams like Tulsa is really not going to bolster your resume. I don't think anybody's going to pick against Memphis in this game. I mean, I'm going with the Tigers. But, you know, if you look at their schedule, they're 7-1 or 4-1 in conference play, but they really just haven't had a marquee win. So even if they're able to, clear out the rest of their schedule, I mean, they've got Tulsa, SMU, and ECU. I just don't think they're going to have enough to get a Big Six.
And the problem is that they're going between different teams that are in the group of 5 teams trying to get to work their way in. And they lost to UCF. UCF's one of the teams they're trying to battle in to get to that Near Six. So with a loss 40-13 to UCF, there's really nothing else you can do at this point unless UCF is going to tank. So I find it kind of hard to believe that it's only a 70% chance that Memphis wins on ESPN. We'll see, though. I'm going to go with the Tigers, even though they're on the road. So I'll pick them to beat Tulsa this week.
Next game, we're moving into Saturday now. We've got noon Penn State and Michigan State. This one is on the road for the Nittany Lions, and coming off of a tough loss, do you think they're able to get it done against Sparty?
I am going to go with Michigan State on this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go with Penn State. I think last week I would have picked Michigan State, seeing how well they played on defense. But the fact they were letting up 39 points to Northwestern, they kind of pride themselves on defense. I'll go with Penn State on this. I think they rebound well. They're really focused now after that loss to Ohio State. Yeah. They need to win out. They need to beat teams badly, so I'll go with Penn State.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions here, too. I think James Franklin will have his guys focused in. I don't think he's going to let the one loss derail their season, although I do think that Michigan State's a team that you can't overlook.
Absolutely not.
They're 6-2, and if I pull up their schedule really quickly, they do have the loss to Notre Dame. They have the loss this past week to Northwestern, but they do have a win against Michigan on the road, which is probably their most impressive win of the season so far. So you can never really underestimate the Spartans.
Yeah, and especially after we see them actually perform well offensively last week against Northwestern. I know they lost, but they've been playing games in the teens all year, so they're able to put together a good offensive scheme and defensive scheme. We could see a shootout here in the Big Ten, which you don't see a lot with Michigan State.
That would be interesting, but I think we're both going to go with Penn State.
I'll go with Penn State. Tempted to go Michigan State, but
next game we've got up on the docket, we've got number 9 Wisconsin on the road at Indiana.
I know how much of a fan you are of Wisconsin.
Who is 3-5, 0-5 in Big Ten play this year. I watched the Wisconsin game last week. They were playing Illinois on the road, and it wasn't great conditions, but just not impressed at all with Wisconsin. Very one-dimensional in just being able to run the ball, not confident at all in their quarterback. So I'm going to pick Wisconsin. It's a reluctant pick, though.
It is. I think it's going to be a lot like the Illinois game, like you said. Jonathan Taylor, they don't know what he's going to do this week. They don't know if he's going to be healthy or not, so it remains to be seen if he plays. I will say Indiana has played teams very close this year. They nearly knocked off Ohio State earlier this year. Most of their losses outside of the Penn State game have been by at least one score, so I think it's going to be close. I think one of those 24-10 scores is probably likely against. I'll go with Wisconsin, but not a really big way for them to bolster their resume at this point. So they just need to get by and don't look bad.
Next game that we've got, this is also a noon kickoff. We've got Auburn traveling to Texas A&M. Could this be a trap game for the Tigers?
It could be. I mean, A&M, like we saw against the Bama game, they really have figured things out a little more than before. Now, they didn't play very well last week against Mississippi State, but I think Auburn on the road, if Jarrett Stidham struggles like he did against Clemson and they can't move the ball well, it'll be tough. I think Texas A&M is going to play them a lot like Alabama. They got nothing to lose. They're going to go out there. Christian Kirk and all those guys are going to be ready to play. I'm going to go with Auburn in this. I think that they're just a better team overall, but I think you should watch out for Texas A&M to bounce back.
I would feel more confident, or I'd feel like I could give Texas A&M a chance in this game if their offense hadn't been so lackluster the last month.
Yeah.
They haven't scored over 20 points in the last 4 games. One of them, they did against South Carolina 4 weeks ago, but they lost to Bama. They scored 19 points. They were able to beat Florida in a 19-17 ugly game. And then obviously the loss last week to Mississippi State, 35-14. So their offensive firepower is just lacking. I understand the game's at home. The crowd should be into it. But I think at the end of the day, Auburn's going to be able to get 3 or 4 touchdowns, and they're going to be able to pull away from the Aggies.
Mon, their quarterback who filled in after whoever the starter was at the beginning of the year got knocked out, he's figured things out a little more. He's got more comfortable under their offensive set. But I think Stidham is going to outplay him. And Kerryon Johnson's about a stud. He's got 14 touchdowns, and no one's talking about him. So I think FPI's finally got something right, 83% chance for Auburn to win. I think Auburn will keep chugging along and get ready for their big games against Georgia coming up.
Next game we're going to look at, again, still at the noon kickoff time slot, we've got UMass traveling to Mississippi State. Hard to believe Mississippi State would falter.
You got the Minutemen. I think this game will be over in about a minute. Yeah, I'm going to go Mississippi State. We saw them last week, like I said, against Texas A&M. They looked a lot better. Fitzpatrick's a great quarterback and really do a lot of things well, and I think that's just going to be too much for UMass. They're not a one-dimensional team, Mississippi State, and that's the teams that usually get upset are one-dimensional. So
yeah, I mean this is a tune-up game for them for Alabama the week following. I mean that's going to be that's the biggest game that they've played all or will play all year. I know that they had a really tough stretch at the start of the season with LSU at home and then on the road at Georgia, at Auburn. They lost the away games, but this game right here is get healthy, get ready for Bama. I don't think that they're really going to play with Bama for all 4 quarters. I think they might make an interesting game. We'll have to see next week, but I think it's a safe bet to go with the Bulldogs.
And it's kind of funny that they're scheduling UMass the week before Alabama, probably on purpose. But like I said, for the Bama game, I mean, Bama does not do well against dual threat quarterbacks. So, and Nick Fitzpatrick could be that guy that could break through. So we'll see. We'll get to that preview next week.
Next game, now we're moving on to the 3:30 time slot. This will be on CBS. This is South Carolina going between the hedges on the road, #1 Georgia. Do you think the Gamecocks, who are 6-2, 4-2 in the SEC, have a realistic chance at toppling the Bulldogs?
They don't. I don't think they are. I think the 6-2 is shouldn't be taken the way that most people would see a 6-2 team. Now they did beat NC State earlier this year, but they've kind of beat up on some weak teams in the SEC East. They did lose to Kentucky, lost to A&M. They beat Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, those teams. I think it's nice they're 6-2. I don't think people should take that as seriously. They're kind of like Virginia. They got a good record, but overall there's not a good team. And Georgia's just too many things well.
Georgia's defense for me is so impressive. I mean, they're allowing 11.9 points, so 12 points a game, and being at home, first time in it's been a while since Georgia's been ranked #1. I mean, it's going to be a lot for them to be able to handle the spotlight. This is a big game for them. It's an afternoon game at home, at newly ranked #1 team of Alabama. You know the fan base is going to be hyped up for this one. But I think if Georgia's defense comes out and they play as they've been playing throughout the season, I just don't think South Carolina's going to be able to contend with the Bulldogs for all 4 quarters.
But if you're Georgia, you can't get complacent. You have Auburn coming up next week. This cannot be a trap game for you. You got to. I mean, I know not a lot of teams take South Carolina seriously, but they're out for blood. They're out to prove to people that they're actually legit. So.
And this would be a huge.
Absolutely.
I mean, this would be the biggest conference win for the Gamecocks since they hosted, I believe, #1 Bama several years back and beat them at home. So. I think it's a long shot for the Gamecocks, but if they were able to pull it off, it would really rattle up the college football playoff.
The amazing part is Georgia can already lock up the SEC East with a win this week. So that kind of shows how strong the SEC is. They're not.
Yeah. Moving on, we've got at 3:30 the Wake Forest Demon Deacons traveling to #3 Notre Dame. Wake Forest started off the year really, really strong. And they're still 5-3, but I just don't think on the road they really have a chance against Notre Dame.
No, especially with the way Notre Dame runs the ball. We saw Clemson was able to utilize that a lot with Kelly Bryant not playing as well. We were able to run the ball right down. Wake Forest, I'm looking at now, they almost allowed 200 rushing yards per game, which is not something you want to see. It's something you want to see if you're Notre Dame, not somebody you want to see if you're Wake Forest defense. Mm-hmm. But Wake has been stingy all year. They've stuck around with a lot of teams. They were able to take down Louisville a couple weeks ago, a team that can run the ball really well. So I think Notre Dame at home is not going to struggle, especially after they're ranked #3 in the country now. They're going to take them seriously. So.
No, and looking at the forecast for this game, it's going to be about 50 degrees, I think, at kickoff, and it's going to be rainy.
Which means Notre Dame will run the ball.
It's going to be run, and you're going to just feed the ball to Josh Adams, and he's just going to continue to pick up yards and bleed the clock. And I think if you're in that kind of situation, it favors Notre Dame, especially with it being at home. Maybe Wake Forest makes it interesting going into the second half, but I just think Notre Dame at home, bad conditions, they'll be able to get it done.
And this is a game where Josh Adams, if he really wants to be taken seriously on the national spotlight as a Heisman contender, he needs to perform well for Notre Dame to succeed.
Yeah. Next game we got, this is a 3:30 kickoff. We've got Ohio State on the road at Iowa. Iowa's 5-3 on the year. Yes, this one is also going to have a little bit of rain. I'm seeing 53 degrees at kickoff, and calling for rain I think this might be a trap game for the Buckeyes.
I think it could be too. I mean, we saw the way Penn State was playing at Iowa. Iowa always plays teams tough, especially at home. Now, it's not a night game. I think 3:30. If it was a night game and all the spotlight was on this game, you might see Ohio State struggle. I think JT Barrett's finally figured things out. He performed so well last week against Penn State. I think it's just going to carry over. Iowa's defense is good, but they've been letting up a lot of points lately, so I'm going to go Ohio State with this one. But watch it. It could be close. It could be that 21-19 kind of score we saw.
I think that this one, I'm going to go with Iowa in this game, and let me tell you why. The reason why is because you've got Michigan State the following week, and I think Ohio State might be looking ahead a little bit too much, and for the fact that this one's on the road, it's an afternoon kickoff, like you said, since it's not a night game, they may not be paying as much attention to it, but you've got sloppy conditions, and if Iowa keeps it close at home, I personally think this game's going to go into overtime. I think it's going to come.
I think it's going to be close.
I think there's going to be a lot of field goals. It's going to be pretty low scoring, around 20 points. And I think somehow Iowa's going to find a way to put this one in overtime. And I think they're going to be able to get it done against the Buckeyes at home.
I'm tempted to pick. I almost picked them when you were talking about it because
I like
the teams they played with this year. They beat Iowa State, which looks like a tremendous win right now for Iowa. Lost by 2 to Penn State, a touchdown to Michigan State, and a touchdown to Northwestern.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to continue that trend. Unfortunately for Iowa, I think the close losses are going to continue to add up.
So?
I think it's going to be a 1 touchdown win for Ohio State, but
I think it's going to be a great game.
It's going to be.
I think it's going to be a great game.
If you're watching the NC State Clemson game, flip over to this game while you're doing it because it's going to be a good.
Well, speaking, you mentioned Iowa State a second ago. That's the next game on the slate that we're going to talk about at 3:30. We've got the Iowa State Cyclones traveling to West Virginia. Another game that's calling for rain, so we've got a lot of games across the country this weekend that are going to have some sloppy conditions. Personally, I think West Virginia is going to possibly be able to get it done against Iowa State at home.
And I think they will. The fact that Will Greer's been playing as well as he did. I know he struggled. He turned the ball over a lot last week when they played Oklahoma State. But Iowa State has not really played a team. Now, they did play Oklahoma well, but Oklahoma's still able to move the ball effectively. Yeah. I think the fact that West Virginia prides himself on throwing the ball well, and Will Greer's been doing that all year, I think at home they're going to be able to get it done. Iowa State's been a good story all year, but they haven't faced a real big test yet.
West Virginia's had 4 games against ranked opponents. They're 1-3 in those games. Their only win is against Texas Tech.
But they're playing teams really, really close.
They're playing teams really close. They opened the season with a close loss to Virginia Tech, a close loss to TCU on the road, and it was a semi-close game against Oklahoma State at home. They kind of let that.
They stuck around for a bit.
They stuck around, but they let that one slip away at the very end. But no, I like them at home against Iowa State. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers here. I think that just because they don't have a little number next to their name, you can't write them off. I think at home they're going to be fired up, ready to play the Cyclones, and I think they're going to be able to get it done.
It's a 2.5-point line, rightfully so, because West Virginia's at home and they're playing well. They're the best non-ranked team, I feel like, right now in the country at 5-3. So yeah, I'm going to go West Virginia on this.
All right, we've got another 3:30 kickoff. We've got Stanford, number 21 Stanford, on the road at number 25 Washington State. I don't really feel like a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this game because of some of the other games that we've highlighted going on at 3:30.
But you should, because this could have a huge impact later in the year on teams that are trying to work their way into the playoff, i.e. Washington, i.e. USC. USC's kind of out of the playoff, but it's going to all come down to, is Bryce Love going to play? Because we saw the way Stanford played last week against was Oregon State. 15-14 win, did not look very good. And they're going to need to try and outscore Washington State, which is a team that loves to throw the ball down the field. So I'm going to go Washington State at home on this one. I know they've struggled as of recently, but I think Stanford's just not going to have enough offense to keep up with them. So I'm going to go with the Cougs on this.
This one to me kind of just feels like a toss-up. I mean, it's going to be, if I'm looking at the forecast correctly,
the good old Pullman, Washington in the middle of November.
38 degrees and more rain at kickoff. So this one could be really low scoring, and this is a tough game to pick for me. I guess I'm going to lean towards Washington State because it's at home. They started out the season really strong. I think they had 6 wins in a row.
Oh, they played well up until the Cal game.
Until the Cal game, and they got smoked.
Yeah.
Smoked.
When teams can outscore them and keep up with them through the air, that's when they struggle.
They rebounded well against Colorado the following week. They won 28-0. But I still feel like I've seen enough from Washington State throughout the season, and I think they're able to get it done. And that would be a big win for them against Stanford. Even though it's at home, I think that would really be able to I don't know if it's a big win for the program, but I still think that if they're 8-2 going into their final 2 games with the potential to reach a 10-win season, it says a lot about where that program's at.
Stanford's a good team, and if Washington State can get some momentum going into the Utah game and the Washington game, that's huge for them. Key to me is just going to be, is Luke Falk going to play well in the first half? He's been benched 2 out of the 3 weeks they've played, like top 25 teams this year.
Yeah.
So the fact that if Mike Leach gets some confidence in him in the first half and knows that he can ride him the whole game, I think that's huge for them.
You think he'll be throwing the ball that much, though, if you've got rain and 30-degree weather?
That's all they do. They're good at it. It's going to be key if they can do that in the cold
I think they're
weather.
going to have to run the ball a lot.
They're going to have to.
You're going to be throwing a brick.
Yeah, but Luke Falk is a good quarterback, so I trust them to at least be able to throw it a little bit, enough to beat Stanford.
So you're going with...
I'm going to go with Washington State.
Okay, we're going with Washington State there. All right, we've got a 4 p.m. kickoff now. We've got Oklahoma. This
Bedlam.
is the big game of the week in Bedlam. Oklahoma on the road, Oklahoma State. Who you got in this one?
Oklahoma has not been... The key to this is defense. I know we don't say that a lot in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
The key to this is defense. Oklahoma has been really struggling against teams. They're basically just outscoring them like Washington State does. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State has found their rhythm a little bit defensively. They played well against... They made West Virginia throw 5 turnovers that game, and they were able to stop Texas to 10 points the game that they played them. So I think Oklahoma State has enough defense to keep up with Oklahoma and shut down Baker Mayfield. It's going to be kind of like the Iowa State game. They're going to make Oklahoma make mistakes, and I think Oklahoma State's going to be have enough offense to keep up with them.
Well, contrary to the previous 8 games that we've talked about, this one actually has decent weather. We've got 80 degrees, mostly sunny, or I guess by that time it's going to be evening kickoff. So perfect weather, ideal.
Do we need to do a weather show for Tiger Vision now?
I mean, we've got a ton of games that have rain this weekend, and that does factor into your game plan.
Yeah.
I mean, it does a lot. Looking at the last 5 opponents that Oklahoma State have played, they've been really similar in performance. Both teams are 4-1. Oklahoma State's loss was last week. Oklahoma's was 2 weeks ago. Iowa State. This one, I feel like, is another coin toss kind of game. Both teams are very similar, but I think Oklahoma's going to be able to get it done.
So we're split on this one. Okay.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day that Oklahoma's going to be able to win this game.
Oklahoma State is out for revenge. In years past, Oklahoma's taken them down. They actually have a chance to get in the playoff this year. I think Mike Gundy's going to have them ready to go. I like Mason Rudolph slightly better than Baker Mayfield. It's just going to be, does Oklahoma turn the ball over? If they don't, they might
Rudolph's got 2 more interceptions. I'm looking here at the quarterback comparison. I mean, they're almost identical.
Yeah.
Mayfield has completed 10 less completions than Rudolph all year, 171 to 181. They're almost identical in total yards. Mayfield's thrown for 1 more touchdown, but only 3 interceptions to Rudolph's 5. So the quarterbacks are almost identical.
But I think Mason Rudolph has a better weapon to go to in James Washington. He's got over 1,000 yards already this year with 8 touchdowns, so that's going to play a factor.
If they can shut him down, though.
That's a big if, because Oklahoma doesn't have a lot of defense. They haven't been shutting anybody down recently. So.
Very true. Yeah, but you're going with Oklahoma State.
I'm going to go Oklahoma State. Yep.
It should be a great game.
I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
Watching that one. Who else do we have?
We got let's see, Texas and TCU. Another good matchup in the Big 12. We got some good Big 12 matchups this week. TCU they're ranked 8th. They're still in the top 10 after suffering a loss last week to Iowa State. I think that was kind of a fluke game. I think TCU's still a good team. When Kenny Hill is on and he's able to do well, I really think TCU has a great chance to win. Texas, they did shut down Mason Rudolph earlier this year, though. I'm going to go with Kenny Hill to bounce back after performance against Iowa State. I'll go with TCU.
Yeah, I think TCU's going to find their offensive footing after last week's loss, 14-7 Iowa State. It was an ugly game. It was an ugly game for TCU, and I don't expect to see the same thing. You know what's amazing is even with that 7-point game, TCU is still averaging 37 points a game.
Throwing the ball down the field all year.
They have been killing it. And their defense has only given up 14. Yeah. I think that's another key thing. Their defense has been playing well, and their offense, except for last week, has been lighting it up.
I mean, they're still a good team. They lost, but they're still a great team.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, and I mean, they lost to a team that's currently ranked in the top 15, so it's a good loss. I think TCU bounced back, though. This game's at home. It's a night game for them. I don't see them having any trouble.
And listen, Texas has played tough teams all year. I mean, they've played USC tough. They played Oklahoma State tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be another one of those games. They're really going to have to keep it low scoring. I think TCU is going to figure it out, though. If they can't do that, then they have no chance to stay in this game.
Next top 25 matchup that we're going to look at 7:15, we've got number 18 UCF on the road, SMU.
SMU's 6-2,
They
3-1 in the conference.
That's a better record than I thought they had.
They really performed well earlier this year against TCU. They did lose by 20, but it was 56-36, so they were able to score the ball effectively. And they lost, by a couple touchdowns to Houston. Still not a team to be taken lightly. I think UCF's going to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right now they got a lot to play for. They're undefeated. They're trying to work their way into the New Year's Six Bowl. So I'll go with UCF, but I think it's going to be one of those high-scoring games like the TCU.
And they're the best college team in Florida right now.
It's hard to believe.
Who would have thought that at the beginning of the year? I mean, with Florida State and Miami.
Yeah. I mean, Miami's up there. But
Miami is.
I think it'd be a good game if you put UCF against Miami.
A lot of people feel like UCF right now is the most consistent team. Yeah. I mean, I know Miami's been able to get through a lot of games, and we talked about that on Tuesday's show about where they should be ranked. I feel like a lot of people appreciate what UCF's been able to do this year. I think that they're able to get this win pretty convincingly. I know SMU is 6-2, but pulling up their schedule, It's
not a lot of good wins.
It's a hollow 6-2. I mean, they opened the season against Stephen F. Austin.
Yep.
Then they went on, or they played at home, North
yeah.
Texas. They lost to TCU on the road. Their only big game all year. They've beaten Arkansas State. They've beaten UConn. They've beaten Tulsa. Not impressed with the Mustangs.
No,
they're 6-2. They're bowl eligible, but I don't think they really have a chance at beating UCF.
They like to score the ball. I mean, if they can't play defense, they're not going to be able to stop UCF. But if they can score the ball and keep up with them, I think they got a realistic chance. I'm looking at how many yards UCF allows per game. SMU allows 439 yards a game, so they're not playing a lot of defense. I think UCF's going to capitalize on that.
So we're both going UCF.
I'll go UCF. Yep.
All right, let's see who we have next on
LSU and Bama.
LSU, Bama.
Going from the American right to the SEC. LSU creeping their way back up. They're right now ranked 19th in the country. So that, they're playing with a little bit more fire at Orgeron. Alabama, they're going to be mad. I think that's going to be the key. They're going to be mad. They're second in the country.
They're going to be playing with something to prove.
And they've been playing mad all year. That's the difference, I think, between this Alabama team and in years past different Alabama teams. I think LSU, we saw the game against Troy this year. Danny Entling's just not that good of a quarterback, and Alabama's just got too much. They're just too physical for LSU to match up against.
I don't know if it's... I mean, yeah, you could sit down and break down all that LSU has to bring to the table. I mean, they're a good team, obviously in the top 20, but I think at the end of the day, it's like, you just touched on, Alabama's ranked second for the first time in a long time. Saban's going to have them fired up. This game is at home for them. They're going to be coming out with something to prove, and I think they're going to beat LSU by at least 4 touchdowns.
Oh,
I think there's a complete flattening, and I think Alabama really is going to do as much as they can within the confines of the regular season and their schedule that they have left to try and convince the committee that they're a deserving #1 team. And they can do it with a dominating performance in this kind of game.
They're going to capitalize on LSU even being ranked in the first place. I mean, if they're able to get a win like that in their belt, it's their first ranked test of the year, that would be huge for them. And they're averaging 10 points allowed per game, which is unheard of right now in the SEC. I mean, the SEC is not that good, but still, it's still pretty incredible. So
defensively, not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, absolutely not. So, yeah, I think LSU's... they're a little bit...
The line in this game is 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. So I think the line speaks for itself. I think it's going to be right around 3 touchdowns. So I'll go with Alabama on this one.
Yeah, I'm going with Bama too. 8 o'clock kickoff on ABC. We've got a good one that could decide the ACC Coastal. Virginia Tech on the road at Miami. Who you got in this one?
Who do you think after what I was talking about this week?
He's going with the Hokies.
Going Hokies, like I've been telling in the past. Miami, I think they're just they haven't done anything all year. They're 7-0. It's a very weak 7-0. I think if you match them up with the UCF, they might not be able to take them. I like Virginia Tech. I like what Josh Jackson's doing. He's really throwing the ball around there. Cam Phillips has been a stud for them all year. I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. I know it's on the road. Yeah. Miami's going to try and keep it low scoring. I think Virginia Tech wins this by at least 3 touchdowns.
You talked about Miami and how they haven't done anything all year. Well, I'm looking at Virginia Tech, and besides one loss to Clemson, there's really nothing that's that impressive.
They have
a season-opening win against West Virginia at the beginning of the year. Now, you could say the same thing about South Carolina beating NC State. How did it happen? Well, it's the season-opening game. So we'll take that with a grain of salt. Looking at who else they've beaten, they throttled Delaware, okay. They beat ECU, okay. They beat Old Dominion, okay. They beat BC, okay. They beat UNC, okay. And now they've beaten Duke. So I get that the Hokies are good this year. They're in the top 15, but I don't think that. And now I know we've talked about Miami and the fact that they've scraped by games that they should have beaten teams much more than they actually did. But I've seen nothing from Virginia Tech that makes me think that they're going to go into the U Stadium and beat them by 3 touchdowns. So I'm going with
one reason why. Miami played 1-8 Carolina on the road. They beat them 24-19. It was a struggle for them to get out of Chapel Hill.
Beat them 59-7.
VT takes them down 59-7. I mean, that one. I know it's only one game, but that one game alone kind of separates these two teams for me. I think Virginia Tech's going to
there's one game that actually separates them, and that game is a loss to Clemson at home for Virginia Tech, because Miami's won all their games.
They haven't played Clemson, though. You match up Miami with Clemson, probably the same result.
You're not wrong. You're not, and Virginia Tech played Clemson fairly tough in that game, but again, I think when you look at both of these teams' schedules, Virginia Tech's had one big game all year. They lost that game. Now, yeah, West Virginia's ranked, but it was a season-opening game, and you saw what South Carolina did with NC State. So I still think, though, when you look at the schedules of Virginia Tech and you look at the schedule of Miami, they're very similar.
They're very similar.
They have a lot left to prove.
Absolutely,
they can prove a lot with this game. If Virginia Tech goes down to Miami and throttles them, I'll be the first to admit, hey, I was wrong, and the Canes weren't for real. Virginia Tech's really good. But if Miami's able to hold their own at home against Virginia Tech, I think you really have to start taking the Canes seriously.
You do, and it'll prep them well for a game against Notre Dame coming up in a couple weeks, which is going to be huge for them.
Hokies, Canes.
Got to go Hokies.
I'm going with the U.
It's not going to be close, trust me.
All right, next game that we've got, if I can pull it up.
We got 2 games left, both in the Pac-12. So Pac-12 after dark, 10 o'clock at Washington and Oregon.
This game is at home for Washington.
It is at home. A couple years ago, you'd think, oh, God, Washington, Oregon. I mean, Oregon's got no chance to lose this game. Different story this year. Now, Washington did struggle. They lost to Arizona State. Mm-hmm. Right now, they got to win out to even have a chance right now to get into the college football playoff. So I'm going to go with Washington. You know, I've seen flashes of Oregon that I think could maybe see potential in them pulling the upset here, but I got to go with Jake Browning and the Huskies on this one. I just think Chris Peterson's just too good of a coach to let him lose a game like this.
Oregon, I think they've circled this one on their calendar after losing last year to the Huskies. I think it was the first time in 12 seasons that Washington had been able to beat Oregon, so it was a huge victory for them. Still, though, I don't think that they're going to have enough to get it done against the Huskies, especially since this game is at home for Washington. I do think it'll be a pretty competitive game. It'll probably be a game that's worth staying up late for and watching, at least the first half. Maybe the second half won't be as interesting. But I think at the end of the day, Washington's going to be able to get it.
Washington's a lot like TCU. They had one bad week where they ran into kind of a buzzsaw defense like they did against Arizona State. Overall, they're still a great team, and they're not a team to be taken lightly. I'm going to go with Washington in this one to keep it moving.
All right, we got 2 more games to pick. This one starts 10:45. This is a late kickoff. This is Arizona, number 22 Arizona, on the road in the Coliseum, number 17 USC. You going with Southern Cal or you going with the Wildcats?
Got to go with the Wildcats. Rich Rod was on the hot seat earlier this year, and right now they're playing like one of the hottest teams in the country. Arizona really bounced back. They're 6-2. This game is huge because it could really decide who's going to go to face a potential Washington team in the Pac-12 championship game. So
you think Washington's going to...
I think Washington eventually gets it done to get there, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
I got Arizona. Khalil Tate, one of the best guys in the country you have never heard of. He absolutely went off last week that they played to get a big win under their belt. I'm going to go with Arizona. USC struggles against teams that can run the ball well, and Tate's been a guy that can do that.
They do, and looking at Arizona's performance last week offensively against Washington State, 58 points. Now, that game was at home, and as is almost every game this weekend, there's going to be poor weather. It's going to be a lot of rain at the Coliseum Saturday night or early Sunday morning, depending on where you're watching the game. But, I still think that USC is able to get it done at home. I think this is a close one. It's probably going to be a sloppy game. Running for Arizona could come in handy, and I think that this will be a very lower score. A lot of punts, maybe a few field goals that are attempted. But I think you're going to see a lot of going forward on 4th down. You might even see some 2-point conversions. It'll be an odd game. I think it's going to be an odd game, but I think the Trojans get it done at home.
Since September 22nd, Arizona has scored over 40 points in every single one of their games. Wow. I think they do it again. It's going to be... USC will score a little more than they did against Notre Dame. I think it's going to be one of those games, though. They're going to let a lot of points come with the Wildcats, yep.
Last game, we've saved the best for last. We've got Clemson, number 4 Clemson, on the road at number 20 NC State. This is a big game for the Tigers. They could basically decide the ACC Atlantic. Right now, NC State is 4-0 in conference play. Clemson is 5-1 in conference play. So this game is huge.
I mean, like you said, it will decide the ACC Atlantic. This one game alone is really going to shape up which team plays for the ACC championship. I believe Clemson, if they win this game and they beat Florida State, they completely lock it up as a whole. Actually, if they win this game, they already do lock it up because they'd have the tiebreaker. So I'm going to go with NC.
You still have one conference game left for Clemson and Florida State. So if Clemson lost that, they beat NC State this weekend and then lost to Florida State.
Because NC State, they are undefeated in conference play. So I guess.
Now NC State still should have 4 conference games left to play because they're only 4-0 in the conference. Clemson is 5-1, so they've played 6 games, so they only have 2 left. Clemson has NC State, and FSU. Let me see who NC State has left in the conference. They've got Clemson, BC, Wake, and UNC. I don't see them losing any 3 of those games.
BC could be tough. BC's played well lately. Maybe. You never know.
But so I think the safe bet is to say this game is the Coastal.
Probably so, yeah.
Or the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. So the key for me, NC State, they struggled against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was able to run the ball effectively. It's going to be kind of like what we just said with USC. NC State's a team that when they're good, they're good. They played Louisville really tough at home. I just think Clemson's going to have just too much for them. They're going to be able to run the ball a lot better than they have been in the past. I think Clemson's going to really rely on Etienne and Feaster to get the job done. So I'm going to go with Clemson in this one.
My heart is saying Clemson, and my mind is saying Wolfpack, which it kills me to say, but both the teams are almost identical, especially when it comes to offense. Both teams are averaging 32 points a game. really Finley has been more impressive than Bryant. He has over 2,000 yards passing, 12 touchdowns, and only one interception. Kelly's at 1,500 yards, 6 TDs, and 4 interceptions. Plus, I think he's back 100% now. I don't.
We
think
like to think.
We think he's back 100%. So no new news there. But if this game comes down to an offensive shootout, I really don't think it favors Clemson. I think that if a team gets over 28 points, 4 touchdowns, I think it favors the Wolfpack. But I think if Clemson can keep it lower scoring, I think they'll be able to pull it out.
Both teams are going to have to play clean, and NC State's been priding themselves on that all year. Yes. Kelly Bryant doesn't turn the ball over too much. He only has 4 picks all year. Just can't fumble the ball. He fumbled the ball at least, 3 times against Georgia Tech?
Yeah, and I will say the best thing that Clemson has going for them is that their defense is allowing under 300 yards a game, whereas NC State's defense is allowing 383 yards a game. So hopefully having that softer defense on the opposite side will allow Clemson to be able to do different things offensively between running the ball and spreading it out. And maybe if Kelly has a great game, doesn't get hit, and his O-line actually protects him, we can score a bunch of points. But just looking at the numbers that I have in front of me, I feel like that if this game becomes a 35, 42, 49 kind of game, it favors the Wolfpack.
We'll just see if the kicker's ready this year for NC State, as we saw last year.
For both
Obviously,
teams.
he was not. For both teams, absolutely, yeah. It's going to be a key factor. So hopefully it doesn't come down to the kicking battle like it did before. But listen, I mean, NC State's been a good team all year. We've seen that. They did struggle against USC, struggling against Notre Dame. But they're not to be taken lightly.
No.
I'll go with Clemson. I think it's going to be close. I think probably around a 34-24 kind of game. I'll go with Clemson to win it like that.
Wow, so you think they're going to be able to get 34 points?
I think I mean, Notre Dame was able to move the ball pretty effectively against NC State, so I think it'll be one of those games. I'll go with Clemson in that by 10.
I see this one being similar in style to either a Notre Dame type of game, not with the conditions, but just with the way the game, where one team gets out to a nice, comfortable lead going into the half, and then the other team comes charging back, or something like a Louisville game where it becomes an offensive shootout. I feel like if it's lower scoring, like I said, Clemson, I would favor them. If it's higher scoring, I feel like I'd favor NC State. I'm going to go with my Tigers. I got to pick Clemson in this game, but I think that Clemson's got to hold NC State to under 28 points.
Yeah, that's going to be huge. I mean, if Clemson really, if they started getting kind of the Syracuse mentality where the game was close and it just kept getting close all the way to the fourth quarter,
and you never saw any urgency. That was the biggest concern with the Syracuse game. There was never any urgency.
And NC State, listen, they saw the Syracuse game. They may take that kind of approach with a more up-tempo. Maybe they'll try to use that, to try and move the ball better against Clemson. But I trust that Bryant's 100%, and I'm going to rely on that to be able to pick Clemson with 100% confidence. So I'll go with them on that.
All right, well, that's been all the top 25 games for this weekend. Don't forget to send us your picks and who you got for this weekend's slate of games. It's been fun. Hopefully we'll do this again next week for Week 11. So for Bradley Kendall, I'm Jay Smith, and this has been After Further Review.
Enjoy Week 10. We'll see you next time.